What is going on, everyone? Just chilling before work. Dude, it has been hot as fuck in Kentucky. I think we had our hottest day like 2 or 3 days ago. I don't even know the average heat of what's been going on. So here lately, I've been going hard in the paint with just podcasts about conspiracy theories and stuff. Wanted to just do kind of like a fun episode today. So I don't really think we're going to get into any conspiracies. Today's episode will just be kind of, sorry I got hiccups, I just ate. Just getting to know me. I do want to do a disclaimer because for some reason people are so sensitive and looking to get offended or looking to pick a fight for no reason. It's kind of sad. This episode is basically going to be me talking about different famous people that I've met. Now, this isn't some brag, this isn't some ego thing, this is just me talking about different interactions of people who are famous that I've met. Now, like I said, this isn't ego driven, it's just these are my stories. I think it's an interesting subject, and I was given the opportunity because of my career choice in life. Not my current one, I work at Kroger now, so ego's all out the door. I work at Kroger, I'm a night shift stalker, we already know that, But at one point in my life, I had worked as a bartender and a server at this place called Beaumont Inn. I've actually done a whole episode on Beaumont Inn as far as the paranormal, so go check that episode out. I think it's literally called Haunted Beaumont Inn or something like that, and it's all of my stories, my wife's stories, co-worker stories about Beaumont Inn being haunted, So if you want to learn more about Beaumont Inn, go check that episode out. But Beaumont Inn is I think when I worked there, it was a 4-star restaurant at the time. And I mean, it's fancy as fuck. You have to have your hair combed, you have to be clean shaven. It's almost like the military, dude. There would be days that I would come in and I would get in trouble just because 1 or 2 hairs were out of place, I'd have to have my hair combed, fucking shirt tucked in, no stains, no rips or tears in your clothing. You had to look, it was like being in the military, man. Certain types of shoes, they couldn't be wore out and shit. Because the upstairs, we had 3 restaurants. We had the upstairs dining room, which was all white tablecloth. They play classical music. Super fancy dining. You feel like you're sitting on the Titanic. And then we had a bar upstairs that was called The Nest, which was 18 and up, just a place for adults to chill and get away from children, which I get. It was a lounge, and you could drink and have food and shit. And then we had the main restaurant for open to the public, because the main dining room was reservation only. So the one downstairs was the tavern, which was open to public. You could just go in, get a Bud Light, get an appetizer. It was fancy, but it wasn't super fancy. Your silverware comes rolled up. The dining room, I worked in the dining room during the day, and you had to fold napkins into a pyramid, and it was insane. Not even napkins, not regular napkins. They were literally cloth napkins that they used to take and get washed and stuff. So working at this type of establishment gave me the opportunity to wait on celebrities and shit every now and then. The restaurant Beaumont Inn itself had won the James Beard Award, and I don't know if you guys know what the James Beard Award is, but it's literally the highest honor that a restaurant can earn. So it kind of sucked when we won it, because it literally, like, everything became 10 times more stricter, because we were wanting to live up to that honor of the James Beard Award, that honor. But anyways, this place afforded me the opportunity to meet a lot of famous people. And honestly, half of these stories that I'm going to tell, these famous people I met just randomly too, like outside of work. But here's some famous people I met. Here's my interactions with them. Here's how it went. Some of these people are fucking awesome, amazing people, and some of these people suck. So first one is, I met this dude named Don Collier. He used to do westerns way back in the day, and then, because westerns, like, western heydays were like 50s, 60s, 70s, and during the 80s he couldn't find work in westerns anymore because nobody really wanted to watch westerns anymore and shit. So he started doing Hubba Bubba commercials, the Hubba Bubba bubblegum commercials. So this dude, by the time I got to meet him, this was probably 2017, somewhere around there. This dude's old. He's probably like in his 80s. And sorry, Ukrainians. I ain't gonna lie, I thought the kid was speaking like gibberish or something, like shamana. And then I was like, oh, they're Ukrainian. Okay. We get a lot of them around here. We have a Ukrainian church right up the road, and I'm recording in a parking lot. But anyways, this dude, like, embraced the cowboy lifestyle. He lived like a fucking cowboy. And his daughters lived in Kentucky and lived in our local area. They might have lived in, like, Lexington, which is like an hour away, like, but people would come to Beaumont Inn because the food was so fucking good. So he came up here he lived out west, like in Arizona, I think it was, out in the desert. And he used to come to visit his daughters and hang out with his grandkids and shit. And he was a legit cowboy, dude, like a maniac. And I mean this in a good way. I don't mean this to make fun of the guy. But I waited on him, and he's just like super rowdy. He's like, hey son, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. And he's like, I want a Manhattan on the rocks. And I'm pretty sure it was Manhattans he was drinking. It was either Manhattans or martinis, which Manhattan is like the bourbon version of a martini. You use sweet vermouth instead of dry vermouth. But either way, like, the way we used to make them, like, they were pretty stout drinks. They weren't like a shot. It was like a double shot with sweet vermouth, which is the mixer, which is literally more alcohol. It's like poison in the water hole. So, I mean, short double rocks glasses of, like, martinis on the rocks. And this dude was swigging them and killing them. Like, just slamming them back, dude. Drinking like a fish. And he's like, hey, how are you, son? You know, and I was like, oh, I'm good, I'll be waiting on you today. And he's like, what's your name? And I'm like, Abe. And just a real rowdy dude. And the daughters were like, already like, oh, you're gonna have fun tonight. And I'm like, uh-oh. But they just meant that he was a real wild dude, even at like 80 years old. I mean, he was just a fucking cowboy, man. But I got to talking to him because it was kind of a slower night. So on slower nights, you're allowed to kind of hang out at the table a little bit if the person is in a talkative mood. As long as the person's like in a talkative mood, you're allowed to hang out at the table and kind of get to know your customers. And it's a bar, you know. And his daughters were like, do you know what happened on the way here of him trying to make it here? And I'm like, no, what happened? And they're like, he got 3 tickets. And I'm like, 3 tickets? What were you doing? He said, I drove here all the way from Arizona. And I'm like, you drove here? Why didn't you take a plane? And he's like, I like driving. And this 80-year-old man, I said, well, why'd you get tickets? He said, I was driving like 90 to 100 the whole way here on the highway. And I'm like, well, that was your problem. I'm like, so what are you going to do with the tickets? He said, I don't know. I might pay him. I might not. Because he was so old, he just didn't care. And he knew he was going to die soon anyway. So he's like, fuck it. I ain't paying shit. I ain't going to court. Nothing, you know. And he drank like a fish. He did not have that attitude. He knew that it was like, dude, I'm at the end of my life. I don't fucking care. But this maniac was going like 90 miles an hour the whole way here, which is fucking hilarious. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Don Collier. Was he was cool as fuck. He gave me this black and white photo because he keeps them on him. He's like, hey, you want an autograph? Because where I worked, like I said, dude, Beaumont Inn kind of fucking sucked. Like, you weren't allowed to ask for autographs and shit. Give me just a second. But they were real weird about stuff, and it kind of fucking blew because, like, you get to wait on these famous people and stuff, and you're not, like, for some reason it's rude to ask for an autograph or a photo, and I don't know, I just thought it was kind of shitty. Like, they were strict about everything. I used to get in trouble, like I said, all the time for, like, how I spoke. And you know, and I'm not ridiculous. Like, I wasn't just being like, you know, like super hillbilly, or like I wouldn't be like, hey y'all, how you all doing? You know, I said man or dude every now and then to like regulars who I knew. I'd be like, hey, what's up, man? And then they'd be like, Abe, come with me. And I'd get pulled to the office and they're like, you can't say man, you have to say sir, yes sir, you know, stuff like that. And I'm like, it's Pat. He's been coming here for like 5 years. Like, everyone knows Pat. You know, he's a local. Like, yeah, I know, but you still can't do that. That's not allowed. I'm like, whatever. It was like military, dude. It fucking blew. Or I would get in trouble. They'd be like, you seem too loosey-goosey and too relaxed. And I'm like, isn't that a good thing? Do you want somebody waiting on you who's like super uptight and shit? Like, I don't know. It's just like, let me do my fucking job. I know what I'm doing. There's a reason why people loved me at Beaumont Inn, because I was a chill, cool dude. And they all had the same shit. They'd be like, Abe's cool as fuck. He's just a chill guy. They all said the same thing, you know. He's just a real chill dude from Florida, you know. But you weren't allowed to be yourself there. But yeah, he gave me this this signed autograph poster of him. He signed it and everything to Abe, my friend, you know. And that was kind of cool because it was like, we did become friends. I got to see him like one more time after that. He was alive and he remembered me, you know. He's seen me on bar. I didn't get to wait on him, but he's like, hey, Abe, come here, you know. And I gave him a hug. He's like, how you doing, man? I'm like, still slinging bottles, dude, you know. And he's like, cool. He's like, I wish you could have waited on us tonight. I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm bartending, not serving. And he was like, all right, well, I'll talk to you a little bit later. And I think like the third time, like his daughters and him, he wasn't there. And I was like, hey, where's Don? And they're like, he died, you know. I was like, oh man, that fucking blows. Which he was old, I get it, but, and I got to hang out with him a couple times. It was cool. But yeah, Don Collier, stand up dude. So this was one of, let me pause it and see who we're going to talk about next. Let's talk about one of my negative experiences, meeting someone famous. And this one really bummed me out, dude. So, let's see. At the time, I had just gotten fired from Beaumont Inn. I'd worked there 8 years. It was decent money. The money started to wither away. Me and my wife were already going through financial problems. We were just down in the dumps financially and just struggling with money and shit. So I guess and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it kind of adds to the story. So for one of my birthdays, I got to go to a concert because my wife had bought tickets to go see Doyle. Sorry, I wanted to move up a little bit. I'm having car trouble today. It's an old car. But anyways, it was my birthday. So I think it was like an early birthday present. It was around October or something. And my wife had bought tickets to go see Doyle, which the band is just called Doyle. It's, if you don't know, it's Doyle, Wolfgang, von Frankenstein from the Misfits, like the original lineup. Oh my God. One of these days I'm going to get through this story, dude. I keep having people fucking pull up right next to me and shit. My car doesn't have AC, but I'm not bitching, you know. I am in a parking lot, but this is usually like where I podcast and shit. But anyway, so we were hard on money, and my wife, she spent like $300 on these tickets because it was like $150 per person because it was a meet and greet, and it was my birthday present. Like, she didn't have to do this, man. And so we went to the concert. It was in this small venue in Louisville. The show was fucking sick, like mosh pits and everything, and I actually got to mosh for like the first time since I was like a teenager, dude. Which, by the way, I was like, I think like 28, 29 maybe. And I don't think you realize how old you are compared to being a teenager until you mosh for a night. And then I woke up the next morning, dude. I couldn't move my body. I felt like I had literally been ran over by a train. It was insane. And I had to work like the next day or whatever. It was fucking brutal. Like, I could barely walk and barely move. It was horrible. And everybody was like, well, how was the concert, dude? I was like, good, just can't move and shit, you know. What is going on today? NPCs, dude. But the reason that bummed me out was, like, we went to the concert, we had a good time, had a couple drinks, enjoyed the show, and we're in line for the meet and greet. And I went up to Doyle, and I held out my hand, and he literally just looked at me, looked down at my hand, and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Trying to shake your hand." And he went, "Oh." I said, "Bro, you're in Kentucky. Like, people shake each other's hands and stuff, you know." And here I am thinking in my head, like, dude, I just paid, well, not me, but my wife, like, just paid her hard-earned money, like, decent fucking money just to fucking meet you. So, I mean, I put my arm around him. He shook my hand. We got a photo or whatever. I don't know. It just kind of bummed me out, man, because it's like, he was just kind of rude, you know, and weird for no reason. And it's like, I get it. Like, he's like a punk, you know, and he's always been like that. If you watch older interviews of him, like, he's, you know, kind of moody and shit. But it's like, I get it when you're younger and it's 1970s and early 80s and, like, you're still young and trying to give off, like, that punk rock vibe. But it's like, bro, you're, like, 50 something now. Like, just be fucking cool. I don't know. It was just weird. And it kind of bummed me out because, like, I literally talked to him for like 2 seconds. He was acting weird and grumpy. And it was just kind of like, because I was in the middle of saying something to him. And the camera guy was like, trying to take a picture. And he's like, he literally looked at me and was like, hey, over there. And I was like, okay. So I looked over and, like, just smiled, you know, got the picture, and they print it out for you and he signs it and shit. Well, no, he signs his own. He's already got pre-made ones. He signs that, gives you one, and then I don't know. The whole thing was just fucking weird. And I told my wife, I'm like, dude, I don't know if every meet and greet is like this or if it was just his meet and greet, but I'm like, thank you, you know, for the birthday present, but don't ever pay for a meet and greet, like, ever again, because this was just like a waste of money. And it almost ruins it too, because some people are just fucking weird. And not that I had, like, these crazy expectations. I didn't think he would be like, oh my god, like, you've been listening to me since the Misfits, like, you love all my work, and you listened to Gorgeous Frankenstein, my first solo band, and you know what I mean? I didn't expect him to be, like, kissing my ass or nothing, but at the same time, it's like, don't meet your heroes, you know, because now it's like, for the rest of my life, you know, like, if Misfits get brought up, you know, and someone starts talking about Doyle, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I met him. They're gonna be like, oh, that's so amazing, like, how was he? And it's like, kind of a fucking dick. Like, and I wish I wouldn't have met him. I wish I had just gotten the tickets, seen the show, and went home having just that good feeling inside of, like, oh man, I got to see Doyle. Because it completely changed the story. You know, the whole night wasn't ruined. Like, Doyle is still an amazing fucking musician. And he deserves getting his ass kissed a little bit for that. Like, I'll kiss his ass. But I'm being honest, too. Like, he's an amazing... It was an awesome fucking show. The lighting, how loud it was, the sound. I don't think they missed one note. Vocals were perfect. It was fucking heavy as hell. I got to mosh. I got to get my rage out. Awesome show. But just do not pay to meet him, because it will ruin... It will ruin, for one, your perspective on him, and two, it will just kind of, in a way, like, ruined the night. Like, because now every time I think about that night, I'm like, yeah, the show was awesome, but man, Doyle was a dick. And I've watched, like, newer interviews with him, and he, like, I get it, you know, like, there was one story he was talking about. He was playing a show in the dead of winter, and there was snow and shit, and he had to leave the venue to go to his tour bus, and he said some drunk guy was out in the parking lot like, Doyle, let me get a photo with you, and he's like, no. And he's like, dude, it's like 20 degrees out here, it's full of snow, like, no. And here I am, like, sweating, I'm soaking wet, I have no shirt on. But then there's a part of me of, like, if the show's over, like, take off the persona and go to your tour bus, like, bundle up before you go outside, you know, like, he's like, I'm not stopping and getting a photo with you, and he's like, because I'll catch pneumonia, and it's like, well, put clothes on. Like, I don't like the cold, so I'm from Florida, so, like, if I was doing a show and it was the dead of winter and I had to go to the tour bus, like, after the show, I would put on a sweater and a jacket to go to the tour bus, Just take it back off. You know, and I feel like I would be like, instead of just being like, no, I would be like, yeah, I'll take a photo with you, but I gotta go, man. Like, it's freezing cold out here. You know, I'll take a photo with you, shake your hand, maybe say a couple paragraphs, and on my way. Like, I get it, but... And I don't know, during the interview when he was telling the story, he's just kind of like, we don't owe you nothing. Like, you guys don't give a fuck about us. And they were just kind of being smug and mean about it. And I was just like, it just rubbed me the wrong way. Because it's like, yeah, you don't owe us nothing. You have the talent. People have paid for that talent. But at the same time, it's almost kind of that ego thing of like, bro, like, Misfits was awesome. You know, they have their legacy, obviously, but it's like at the end of the day, like, you were a band from the 70s that was like an old punk band. Like, I figured you would still be kind of humble and be like, we were big, but we weren't that big. You know, I mean, there's still a lot of people who don't even know who the fucking Misfits are, you know, unless you go to like Hot Topic and you're like, in high school. You know what I mean? And even Doyle, like the band Doyle, not the person, but the band Doyle, like it's not even, it's a good band, but they're not huge. It's like, you're not Rob Zombie, you're not Marilyn Manson, you're not Nine Inch Nails. Like, humble yourself a little bit. But yeah, that's my story on Doyle. And I'm sure the comments are gonna light me up and be like, I've met Doyle, he's cool as fuck. And it's like, hey, maybe I just met him on an off day, you know? Would I still go and see him again? Sure, but I'm not going to get a meet and greet, you know? I'm just warning you, don't waste your money on a meet and greet. Maybe it's because, like, it was me meeting him and not my wife. I think she paid for the meet and greet, but she didn't actually want to meet him. She's like, I don't know this dude. She's not a punk. I'm a punk, you know. So she was like, I don't even know this guy. But yeah, I would see him again, you know. I'm just not rich, so like I'm very sparingly on like who I pay money to go see. I make sure that it's somebody I haven't seen before, and how much is the tickets, because I don't have a lot of money. But yeah, that's my Doyle story, man. Alright, so I feel like I slipped into like an alternate universe of like knowing who I used to be like when I was younger, about like full-blown horror punk, and the next person I'm going to talk about is actually cool as fuck and is surprising to me. Like, it's like a totally different Abe than who I used to be. Eddie Montgomery. So, we moved here from Florida. I think it was 2009, because, no, it would have had to have been like 2008 or 2007, because I was like 15, 16 years old. I'd had my permit down in Florida, got here, had to wait a whole nother year because the laws are different to get my driver's permit again. It sucked. And I moved here from Florida to Garrett County, Kentucky. And next biggest town over was like a college town called Danville, which is where we would go because Danville was like the cool spot. We lived in this town called Lancaster, which is like bumfuck Egypt, Kentucky, like as redneck as you get, which is sucks for someone like me who's a punk, you know, and an angsty teenager. And it's like, why did you move us here? I had friends, there was other punks. Like, this place fucking blows. So we used to have this town next to us called Danville, which we would go to have fun. And we all had just moved here, like me and my whole family and shit. And we all went to Danville to go check it out. I think like my brother and sister-in-law were here and they're just like, they had just moved here and shit, and or were visiting or something, and we're, for some reason, I don't know why, we all went to this place called FYE. If you remember, it was fucking awesome. For Your Entertainment. They sold like CDs, DVDs, movies, posters, but like cool shit, because it was like, it was where I would buy all my Misfits albums, my Danzig albums, because like it was music that you couldn't find in mainstream places. It was like you could find rare shit. I bought like rare movies from there. You know, it'd be the type of place you could find like Cannibal Holocaust or like Last House on the Left or something, you know. As far as movies. So we went in there, and there was an Elvis impersonator who worked there. It was fucking weird. He's like a 50-year-old dude. He looked nothing like Elvis. He sounded nothing like Elvis. But we had just moved there from Florida, and we're just checking it out, looking at CDs and shit, and Eddie Montgomery walks in, you know, with the big black hat. He's a country singer, wearing like the big duster and shit, and he was in there to get music or something. And my sister-in-law was talking to the Elvis impersonator for some reason, and the dude was like, "Hey, there's Eddie Montgomery." And she's like, "What?" Because I guess her family, her mom and dad, used to listen to like country a lot. So she went over, got a hug from him, got a picture with him, whatever. Was like, "Oh my God, Eddie Montgomery." And I don't know, I was a teenager and a punk, and I was like, fuck this guy. Like, fuck Eddie Montgomery. You know, he plays redneck cousin fucking music and shit. And I kind of feel bad for it now, and I'll tell you why. But, so we got to know Eddie Montgomery. Like, he lived either in Perryville, which is the next town over from Danville, or he lived somewhere in Danville. He had a restaurant in Harrodsburg called Eddie Montgomery's Steakhouse. And, I worked at McDonald's. I was probably about 18, 19 years old, and he used to come through drive-thru. And everybody would be like, "Oh my God, Eddie Montgomery's in drive-thru." And I'm like, why the fuck do you all care? Like, his music sucks. He's probably a stupid redneck piece of shit, you know. That was my mindset because I was a punk. And he came through drive-thru, ordered his food, and he hands me the card. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm like, I'm all right. And his son's in the back seat and the window's down. And he goes, "Oh my God, son." And starts rolling up his window, his son's window, going, "God damn, can't you wait till you get home to fucking fart like that?" And I couldn't help but laugh. And I don't know, that was my, like, actual one-on-one first interaction with Eddie Montgomery. And I was like, okay, he's cool. He's got a sense of humor. You know, does he play the music I like? No. Do I hate him? No. I don't hate him, you know. But I don't know. It's kind of funny. Just like a good lame fart joke is what made me like him, you know. And so I years later started bartending for Beaumont Inn. And I'd actually applied to Eddie Montgomery's Steakhouse, because I went to Lexington bartending school, and my teacher who taught me how to bartend worked at Eddie Montgomery's as his day job, and he taught bartending classes at night, you know. So he, you know, I was like, fuck yeah. His name's Brent Monzingo. You could probably find him on Google. He was a, like, decent bartender and shit. I know he got in magazines and shit. Won awards, all sorts of shit. But, because bartending, a lot of people don't know this, it's kind of like a sport. It really is. Like, if you're in a bigger city and shit, it's almost like a sport. bartenders know famous bartenders and shit. They're almost like celebrities. It's kind of cool. Because it gives you something to look forward to. You're like, oh man, I want to be the next Brent Monzingo, you know? And there's competitions and everything. Like flair competitions and shit. It's pretty cool. It's literally a sport. But, so I applied there and I ended up at Beaumont Inn. And, Eddie's had actually called me back to hire me and I turned it down. But the bartender that I worked with at Beaumont, he had been a previous bartender at Eddie Montgomery's. And I got to know Eddie Montgomery a little more through stories that he was telling me. And he's like, dude, I love Eddie Montgomery, you know. He's cool as fuck. And I just got to know him from hearing stories of him. He said he was always cool. He'd come in every day and sit at the bar and just get drunk. And turns out Eddie ended up getting cancer, real bad fucking cancer that almost killed him. And then his wife left him he had either just recovered from cancer or was still going through cancer and looking at death. And his wife sent him divorce papers at his own restaurant while he was sitting at the bar. My buddy Josh was bartending for him and literally was pouring him a drink, and some dude in a suit came in, handed him papers, walked away, and he said Eddie's face just dropped, was like, fuck. And Josh was like, what's going on? What's wrong, man? And he's like, divorce papers. At his own bar, in front of his own employees, in front of everyone who knew him there. It was just like, it was shitty. And he was dying of cancer, you know, like looked horrible, lost a bunch of weight. Sad shit, dude. And she ended up winning through the divorce, like the restaurant and shit. So she owned his restaurant with his name still on it. She ended up like not even firing the employees. They came to work. They all showed up to work one time. And there was a sign on the door of basically, we shut down. Good luck finding another job. Sorry. It was horrible. So the news was out there and everything, like, because none of them knew it was coming. She just literally, they came in to go to work one shift and there was a sign on the door that said we shut down, and no one had a heads up. Nothing. Crazy shit though. But that's 37 minutes. Eddie Montgomery, cool guy. I like him. Which is weird, like I said, because I ended up actually liking Eddie Montgomery more than Doyle, which is weird if anyone knows my personality. That's actually where I'm gonna wrap it up. I think this could be a two-parter because I'm only halfway through my list. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I can't wait to get lit up in the comments from Doyle fans of like, fuck you, Doyle's cool as fuck. And it's like, well, I never said I don't like him. I don't hate him. I'm just giving you my honest interaction with him, my honest opinion, and what I think about him. Like I even said, I would still go and see his band again. I'd still buy a CD and check him out, you know. But as far as like him as an actual person, tis what tis. That was my interaction. That was an honest, true story. But maybe I'll do a part 2. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hit me up in the comments. Love y'all. See you guys later.